A chance encounter between a kind-hearted waitress and a mysterious stranger sparks an unexpected connection. But when secrets unravel and the truth about his billionaire status comes to light, trust is shattered. Can their bond survive the weight of lies, or will it all fall apart? Dive into this gripping story of love, deception, and second chances. Who is the man behind the mask, and will he ever earn her forgiveness? Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more emotional and unforgettable stories. The morning sun barely kissed the tops of the buildings, yet the streets of Havenport already buzzed with energy. Vendors shouted over one another, delivery bikes zipped between honking cars, and hurried commuters elbowed past. In the midst of this controlled chaos moved a slender girl balancing a basket of warm bread on her head. Lena Carter adjusted her worn sneakers and picked up her pace, careful not to jostle the breakfast she'd saved up for her little sister. She weaved through the crowd like a river through rocks, determined and unseen. As she passed a busy intersection, something, or rather someone, caught her eye. Near a chipped bench, a young man paced back and forth, frustration etched across his sharp features. His clothes, though slightly rumpled, screamed expensive. A tailored blazer, designer loafers, and a slim gold watch that glinted whenever he ran his hand through his messy dark hair. Yet despite his polished exterior, the man looked completely stranded. In one hand he held a dead phone, waving it helplessly like it might magically turn back on. In the other, he clutched nothing. No wallet, no backup, no plan. Curiosity tugged at Lena's feet, slowing her down. Everyone else passed him without a second glance, too busy, too cautious, or maybe just too used to seeing trouble they didn't want to touch. But Lena wasn't everyone else. Setting her basket down carefully by a lamppost, she approached him with tentative steps. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked, voice gentle but firm enough to cut through the street noise. The man jolted slightly, startled by her sudden presence. His eyes, gray, serious, but surprisingly warm, met hers, and for a moment he just stared as if unaccustomed to someone actually speaking to him without an agenda. Then he sighed, running a tired hand down his face. "I lost my wallet," he said, his voice low and even, but carrying the weight of the morning's frustration. "Somewhere between the coffee shop and here." He lifted the useless phone. "And of course, my phone's dead too." Something about his voice felt familiar to Lena, like a song she couldn't quite place. Maybe she'd heard it on TV or the radio, but she brushed the thought away. "I can help you look," she offered before she could second-guess herself. The man blinked. "Really?" He sounded genuinely shocked. She shrugged, flashing a small smile. "I've been stuck before too. I know how it feels when nobody even bothers to stop." For a long beat, he simply looked at her. The girl in faded jeans and a sun-bleached t-shirt, standing there with breadcrumbs on her sleeves and hope in her eyes. Finally, he nodded. "Thank you. I honestly don't even know where to start." "We'll start where you last remember using it," Lena said briskly, grabbing her basket and motioning for him to follow. Side by side, they retraced his steps through the pulsing veins of the city. Lena fired off quick questions. Where exactly had he stood? What pocket he usually kept his wallet in? Had he bumped into anyone? The man, who eventually introduced himself simply as Evan, answered as best he could, growing more intrigued by her sharp focus and calm persistence. They looped back to the coffee shop first, where the barista vaguely remembered Evan ordering a latte, but hadn't seen any wallet left behind. Disappointed but undeterred, Lena scoured the sidewalk, crouching beside trash cans, peeking under vendor carts, brushing back leaves near curbs. Evan trailed behind her, watching not just her actions but the earnest way she seemed to care. Like it wasn't just a wallet at stake but something bigger. Something worth protecting. "You don't even know me," he said finally, unable to hide the wonder in his tone. "Why are you doing this?" Lena shot him a sideways glance and smiled, a real one, the kind that made the tired parts of him sit up and notice. "Because someone should," she said simply. They rounded a corner, and Lena suddenly gasped, pointing to a low bush near a fruit cart. Something dark and rectangular glinted beneath the leaves. Evan sprinted ahead, heart hammering, and reached down to pull out his wallet, dusty, a little battered but perfectly intact. Opening it, he flipped through the contents quickly. Cash, cards, ID, all still there. Relief flooded his face. You're incredible, he breathed. Lena just grinned. Maybe just lucky. Evan stared at her, a strange feeling rising in his chest. Before he could second-guess himself, he said, "At least let me get your number. I'd like to repay you someday." She hesitated, cheeks warming, then scribbled her number on a crumpled coffee receipt. She handed it to him, gave a little wave, and disappeared into the crowd, never guessing that this one morning would rewrite both of their lives forever. The next morning, Evan sat at the edge of his bed, the crumpled coffee receipt in his hand. He had spent half the night thinking about Lena. The way her smile had felt so real, how she moved through chaos with a steady calmness he hadn't seen in a long time. He punched in the number she'd given him, heart ticking a little faster, but when he hit call, he was met with a robotic voice. "The number you have dialed is not in service." Frowning, he tried again, double-checking the digits. Same result. He stared at the smudged ink. The rain last night must have blurred one or two numbers just enough to doom his only connection to her. For a man who could have anyone's contact with a simple phone call to his assistant, Evan felt strangely helpless. He didn't want to track her down through power or money. He wanted to find her the right way, the real way. If fate had been kind enough to introduce them once, maybe it would do it again. Still, Evan wasn't known for leaving things to chance. Quietly, he tasked his head of security to pull CCTV footage from the block where they had found his wallet. He slipped a modest reward notice to a few street vendors in the area too, just in case someone recognized the girl with the warm smile and threadbare sneakers. Meanwhile, Lena went about her days believing their encounter was over. She returned to the rhythm of her life, mopping floors at the diner in the mornings, tutoring neighborhood kids in the afternoons, helping her little sister Maggie with homework in the evenings. Life was busy, noisy, and often exhausting, but it was hers, and she wore it like armor. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep took her, Lena found her thoughts drifting. She would wonder what had happened to Evan, if he'd managed to replace his dead phone, if he was still walking the crowded streets of Havenport searching for something or someone. Then she'd shake her head, scolding herself for being silly. Men like him didn't look twice at girls like her. On a humid Thursday afternoon, fate decided to stir the pot. The streets buzzed with the annual Havenport Summer Festival, turning every corner into a riot of music, food, and color. Lena had just finished helping her boss set up a booth when she decided to slip away for a break, weaving through the crowd in search of something cold to drink. Across the square, a young boy named Milo, who sold lemonade near the fountain, spotted her. He had seen the quiet reward posters, the ones describing a girl who had helped a lost man, and something about Lena sparked a memory. Acting on instinct, Milo snapped a quick photo of her from his rickety stand and sent it to the number listed on the flyer. Miles away, Evan was pacing inside his sleek office when his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another calendar reminder. But something made him glance down. The image was blurry, grainy even, but there she was, Lena, laughing as she handed a balloon to a little girl at the festival. Without thinking, Evan grabbed his jacket and ran, not waiting for his driver, not caring about the board meeting he was supposed to attend. His heart beat a frantic rhythm as he wove his way through the streets, weaving between food stalls and performers, scanning every face. And then he saw her. Lena, caught in the middle of a jostling crowd near a food cart, her arms flailing slightly as a wave of people pushed too hard. Instinct took over. Evan darted forward, catching her just before she stumbled into a cart of candied apples. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Lena looked up, dazed, and her breath hitched when she realized who it was. "You," she whispered, wonder laced with disbelief. "I've been looking for you," Evan said, a little breathless, a little desperate, but smiling as if he had finally found his way home. The initial shock of seeing Evan again left Lena stunned, caught between disbelief and curiosity. She stepped back slightly, trying to regain her composure, but the crowd kept pushing around them, oblivious to the odd, electric moment happening between the two of them. Are you all right?" Evan asked gently, his voice cutting through the noise, a softness she hadn't expected from someone who seemed so out of place in this chaotic street scene. Lena nodded. "Still recovering." Yeah, I'm fine." I just wasn't expecting. She trailed off, still not sure how to process the fact that he was standing right in front of her in the middle of a festival, after she had assumed their encounter was nothing more than a fleeting moment in time. Evan offered her a sheepish smile. I know, this is probably unexpected. Lena shifted her weight uncomfortably. The world around them felt too big, too noisy, as if everything were watching them, waiting for something to happen. She forced herself to take a deep breath. I thought you'd moved on. It's fine, really. But even as she said it, there was a tug at her chest, something deep and unfamiliar. The words felt like a lie, but she couldn't help it. Men like him didn't look for girls like her. That much she knew. I haven't moved on, Evan replied quietly. I've been trying to find you. Her head snapped up, eyes widening in disbelief. What do you mean? You've been looking for me? Why? His gaze softened, and for the first time, Lena noticed the vulnerability in his eyes, something she hadn't expected to see behind the polished facade. Because you helped me when no one else did, he said, his voice almost a whisper. And you treated me like a person, not like some billionaire or a project. The words landed heavily between them, and Lena felt a heat spread through her chest. She swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. The idea of being seen for who she truly was, of being valued for something beyond her appearance or circumstances, felt like a dream she'd never dared to chase. Evan took a small step forward, his hand instinctively reaching out, but then he hesitated, unsure of how she'd react. I owe you more than a thank you. I thought maybe we could talk. Lena blinked, her mind racing. Why was he doing this? What did he want from her? But despite the whirlwind of doubt that threatened to take over, something about his words, something about the sincerity in his eyes, made her pause. You owe me nothing, she said, shaking her head slightly. You've already given me something. She offered him a small, guarded smile. Evan didn't seem convinced. Please, just let me buy you a cup of coffee. No strings attached, just a chance to talk. Lena hesitated, the storm of her thoughts still raging inside her. She had no idea what he was really after, but something in her heart told her this wasn't just some rich man's whim. All right, she said slowly, her voice betraying the curiosity she couldn't quite hide. But I'm not some project for you to fix, okay? Evan's eyes lit up with a mix of amusement and relief. I promise, no fixing. I just want to get to know you. They walked together to a small, cozy cafe nestled between two shops. The hustle and bustle of the festival seemed distant in the quiet, warm space, the clinking of cups and soft murmur of other patrons adding to the calming atmosphere. They sat down by the window, the light filtering through the glass, casting soft shadows on the wooden table. Evan ordered 2 lattes, and when the barista set them down, their fingers brushed lightly. The brief contact was enough to send a flutter through Lena's chest, and she quickly looked away, focusing on her coffee. So, she said, trying to keep her tone light, despite the growing tension in her chest. You've been looking for me? For how long? Evan leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. Since the day I lost my wallet. And maybe a little longer, he added with a small, almost nervous smile. Lena frowned slightly. That day? But why? Evan's smile faded as he looked down into his coffee cup, swirling it thoughtfully before answering. Because you didn't treat me like everyone else does. People look at me and see only my wealth, my status. But you saw me. You helped me when I was just a stranger. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I mattered for more than just what I had. Lena's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure how to process what he was saying. The idea that someone, let alone someone as seemingly perfect as Evan, could feel so isolated was hard to wrap her mind around. I didn't do anything special, she muttered, almost to herself. I just helped. That's it. Evan's eyes softened as he leaned forward, his voice low. To me, that's everything. The weight of his words settled between them, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if the world outside the cafe had faded away, leaving just the two of them, caught in a moment that neither of them had expected, yet both had needed. Days passed since their quiet meeting at the cafe, and Evan found himself obsessing over the connection he felt with Lena. Her words lingered in his mind. I'm not a project for you to fix. Yet, he couldn't shake the thought of her. What she said was true. He hadn't treated her like the others. He hadn't planned on getting this close to her, And the fact that she didn't know who he really was only made their bond more real, more human. But there was a weight he couldn't ignore. Every time they spent time together, every laugh, every moment of silence shared, Evan felt a rising tide of guilt. Lena was kind, strong, and fiercely independent, yet there was a distance in her eyes that he couldn't quite understand. He realized she was building walls, and he wasn't sure how to break through them. He knew the truth needed to come out. It wasn't fair to keep hiding behind a facade, pretending he was just a regular guy when he wasn't. But he was terrified. Terrified that once Lena knew who he really was, once she understood the world he came from, she might walk away. Meanwhile, Lena continued her routine, trying to push the thoughts of Evan to the back of her mind. The more she saw him, the more conflicted she became. She had grown fond of him, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. Who was he really? What did he want from her? She noticed things, like the way he casually handled expensive items, the strange ease with which he navigated high-end stores, and his hesitation to talk about his own life. He had shown her a side of him, yes, but she couldn't help but feel there was more. Something he wasn't telling her. One evening, as Lena was mopping the floors of the diner, she overheard a conversation between two customers at a nearby table. They were discussing the latest news about a tech giant, Sinclair Enterprises, and how the CEO was a mysterious figure who rarely made public appearances. The description fit Evan perfectly, and something inside her clicked. The man she'd been spending time with, the one who had shared stories and laughed with her, was the very person people had been gossiping about for years. A cold feeling settled in her stomach. She'd known something was off. But this was different. She tried to shake the thought away, but it kept creeping back in, like a shadow she couldn't escape. She had fallen for him, for the person she thought he was, not the image people painted. But now, with this new knowledge, she couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Lena's mind raced as she closed the diner for the night. She couldn't face him again without knowing for sure. She needed to confront him, to hear the truth from his lips. No more games, no more secrets. The next day, as the sun began to set, Lena walked down the familiar street where they had first met. The world around her felt louder, more pressing, as if everything was conspiring to push her toward a decision she wasn't ready to make. She reached the cafe where Evan had taken her, only to find the door slightly ajar. Inside, Evan was sitting by the window, as if waiting for her. His face softened when he saw her, but there was a nervousness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. It was as if he knew what was coming. Lena walked in, her heart pounding in her chest. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but trembling underneath. Evan stood up, his expression serious. "I know," he said quietly. "I've been waiting for this." Lena's gaze didn't leave his. "I know who you are, Evan. I overheard people talking. Sinclair Enterprises, the tech billionaire, the man everyone talks about. You're him." A heavy silence filled the room. Evan's face tightened, and for a moment, he looked like he might say something, but the words wouldn't come. "Lena," he began, his voice low and full of regret, "I didn't tell you because I was afraid you wouldn't see me. Not the company, not the money, not the image, but me, the person who's been lost." Lena shook her head, her eyes burning with a mixture of confusion and hurt. "You should have told me. You should have trusted me with the truth." Evan reached out, his hand hovering between them, as if unsure whether to touch her. "I didn't want to scare you away," he confessed. "I've lived my life in a world where people only want something from me. I thought, maybe with you I could just be me. I didn't want to lose that." Lena stared at him for a long moment. The hurt was still there, but so was the tenderness. The trust they had built wasn't completely shattered. "I don't care about the money, Evan. I care about who you are." But this was a lie. "I never meant to lie to you," Evan whispered. "I was just trying to protect what we had." Lena felt the weight of his words, but the frustration was still there. "But you can't protect something by hiding the truth. That's not protection. That's keeping me in the dark." Evan stepped closer, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I should have been honest from the start, but I need you to know that everything I've said to you, everything we've shared, it's all real. I'm not the man the world thinks I am. I just want you to see me for who I am with you." Lena's heart softened, but the pain of the deception still lingered. She needed time. Time to think. Time to process. "I need space," she said quietly, turning toward the door. "I don't know what to do with all of this yet." Evan nodded, his face full of regret. "Take all the time you need, Lena. I'll be here, waiting for you to decide what's best." As she stepped into the street, the weight of his words hung in the air. But one thing was certain: everything had changed. The days that followed were filled with silence, the kind that presses in on you, suffocating and heavy. Lena threw herself back into her work, cleaning office buildings in the mornings and waiting tables at a diner in the evenings. It was familiar, and in its routine, it offered her a sense of control, a small comfort in the midst of the storm that was Evan. She hadn't reached out to him, hadn't answered any of his calls. She needed space. She needed time to breathe. Meanwhile, Evan had retreated into his own world. His days, once filled with meetings and decisions that impacted thousands of lives, now felt hollow. Every conversation, every negotiation seemed distant. His thoughts were always with her, Lena, the woman who had somehow peeled back the layers of his life, who had made him feel seen for who he truly was. He missed her more than he cared to admit, but he respected her need for distance. She was right to be angry, right to need time to process everything he had kept from her. Evan tried to throw himself into his work, but the truth of it all lingered. He couldn't stop thinking about Lena, about how she had looked at him with that quiet strength, how she had called him out for hiding behind his wealth. She had made him feel like a human being, not just a walking bank account. And yet it was the very thing that had brought them together that now stood between them, the lie. One afternoon, after days of silence and contemplation, Lena found herself standing in front of a familiar building, one she had walked by countless times before. It was Evan's office, the tall glass structure that had seemed so imposing when she first saw it. But now, it felt different. It felt like a place where truths were hiding, just like the man who worked inside. She wasn't sure what had brought her here. Maybe it was the unanswered questions, the restless nights where her mind replayed every moment they had spent together. Maybe it was the fact that she couldn't stop thinking about him, despite the betrayal. She couldn't keep pretending she didn't care. Taking a deep breath, Lena walked through the revolving doors and into the lobby. The receptionist gave her a polite, if slightly curious smile as she asked for Evan. "Mr. Sinclair is expecting you," the receptionist said, almost too quickly. Lena was led up to his office, where Evan was waiting, his posture tense as if he had been expecting this moment. He stood as soon as she entered, his face filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Lena," he said softly, the weight of her name on his lips like a prayer. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady, though the emotions inside her were anything but calm. He nodded, stepping aside to let her into the room. His office was sleek and modern, filled with polished surfaces and towering windows that overlooked the city. But for the first time, it felt cold, impersonal. Lena took a seat across from him, the space between them palpable. "I've had time to think," she began, her voice quiet. "And I realized something. You didn't lie to me because you didn't care. You lied because you were afraid." Evan's eyes softened, but he didn't speak. He let her continue. "I think what hurt the most wasn't that you kept this part of your life hidden from me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's that you didn't trust me enough to let me in." There it was, the truth she had been dancing around. She had trusted him, believed in the connection they shared, and yet he had kept her in the dark. But as much as it stung, she couldn't deny that what they had, what she had felt, was real. "I do trust you," Evan whispered. "I've never trusted anyone more than I trust you, but I was afraid that you would see me as just another man with money and status. I wanted you to see me as me." Lena stared at him, her heart in turmoil. She had been angry, hurt, confused, but now there was a new feeling, understanding. She had never asked him to be someone he wasn't, but she had wanted him to be honest. "I don't know what to do with all of this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can just forget the lies." Evan reached out, his hand hovering between them, but this time there was no hesitation in his eyes. "I don't expect you to forget. I only ask for the chance to prove to you that the person you got to know, the person I was with you, That's who I am." Lena took a deep breath, her fingers curling into her palms. For a long moment, she just looked at him, letting the weight of his words settle. "I don't want to rush into anything," she finally said, "but I also don't want to walk away without knowing if we can be something real, something honest." Evan nodded, his expression softening. "I'll wait for you, Lena, as long as it takes." Lena didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the road ahead would be difficult. Maybe there would be more challenges to face, more things to work through. But for now, the only thing that mattered was the truth between them. The truth that they were willing to give each other a second chance. Lesson learned. The story of Lena and Evan teaches us a powerful lesson about trust, vulnerability, and the complexity of human relationships. It reminds us that true connections are built on honesty, not on illusions or facades. While it's natural to fear judgment or rejection, hiding the truth only creates distance and misunderstanding. Lena's journey highlights the importance of being true to oneself, even when faced with difficult truths. She could have walked away, choosing to hold on to her hurt, but instead, she chose to confront her feelings and open her heart to the possibility of forgiveness. For Evan, the lesson is about the courage it takes to be honest, even when it feels safer to hide behind a mask of perfection. His fear of being judged for his wealth and status led him to keep his true self hidden. But it was only through vulnerability that he was able to connect with Lena on a deeper level. The real magic in their relationship didn't come from the money or the status. It came from their willingness to be open, to face their mistakes, and to give each other a chance at something real. In the end, the story shows that love is not about grand gestures or hiding the truth, but about being authentic, honest, and giving each other the space to grow together. True love requires patience, trust, and a deep commitment to understanding one another. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories just like this.